good, except for the fact everybody wants me to work on Sundays. And we know that's not going to work out. You know how Grandma is. Can't work on the Lord's Day. What's that scripture she's always quoting? Something about God creating the world in 7 days, resting on the seventh, or something like that. You know, back when he was creating Adam.
Right. I know the scripture you're talking about. It's in Genesis chapter 2. Do you still have the Bible app on your phone?
Yeah, I do.
Well, why don't we look up that scripture and see what it actually says, okay?
Okay.
It's Genesis chapter 2. And I'll read, starting there in verse 1. It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed. And by the seventh day God had completed the work that he had been doing. And he began to rest on the seventh day from all his work that he had been doing. And God went on to bless the seventh day and to declare it sacred. For on it God has been resting from all the work that he has created, all that he purposed to make." So in that scripture, Dee, did you notice who is actually resting?
It says God rested.
Right. And do you see there where he commanded Adam to do the same?
No, I don't.
In fact, there's no Bible record at all of Adam ever keeping a Sabbath day.
Well, in that case, then where did Grandma get this from?
Well, you just watched that movie with her, the Ten Commandments, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Same time every year.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't until after the Israelites escaped from Egypt that Jehovah gave them that law about the Sabbath. And it had to do with when he gave them the manna. So let's look at that in Exodus chapter 16, and we'll see what instructions they were given. Exodus 16, and if you'll start reading there, D, in verses 23 through 26.
Okay. And that reads, "At that he said to them, 'It is what Jehovah has said. Tomorrow there will be a complete rest, a holy Sabbath to Jehovah. Bake what you need to bake and boil what you need to boil. Then save whatever is left over and keep it until the morning.' So they saved it until the morning, just as Moses had commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there maggots in it. Then Moses said, 'Eat it today, because today is a Sabbath to Jehovah. Today you will not find it on the ground. You will pick it up for 6 days, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none.'"
All right. So they were supposed to pick up the manna for 6 days in a row, but what was going to happen on the seventh day?
It says there would be none.
Right, so on the sixth day they were supposed to pick up the double amount. Now follow along as I read verse 27 to see what happens when that seventh day rolled around. It says, "However, some of the people did go out to pick it up on the seventh day, but they found nothing." So it wasn't that these people were being greedy. This scripture just helps us to see they were not in the habit of observing a Sabbath day. And really think about it, as slaves, there were no rest days, were there?
Right.
Okay? So let's look over at Deuteronomy chapter 5 to see why Jehovah gave them the Sabbath. And that's Deuteronomy chapter 5, and if you'll read verse 15.
Okay. And that reads, "Remember that you became a slave in the land of Egypt, and that Jehovah your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. That is why Jehovah your God commanded you to observe the Sabbath day."
All right, so why did Jehovah command them to observe the Sabbath day?
To remind them that he rescued them from Egypt.
Right. So before that time, there was no Sabbath then, if it was to remind them of escaping from Egypt. In fact, for the whole 2.5 millenniums before Moses, the Bible's completely silent about a Sabbath day. And think when Noah, after the flood, he was given instructions on the eating of meat, respecting life, abstaining from blood. There's no mention at all of a Sabbath day.
Okay, so that proves that Adam didn't have to observe the Sabbath, but it eventually came a law, so do we have to obey it today?
All right, well, let's turn over to Exodus chapter 31 to see if that applies to me and you, okay?
Okay.